Welcome.
Just talk loud, Diane. Good evening. Welcome everybody to Candidates Night. My name's
Welcome, everyone, to all the local elected officials that are here tonight. Welcome to the candidates that are joining us for Candidates Night, and welcome to everyone at home that's listening live to us here tonight. I want to thank EB Community Access Media and Russ Hannigan and Zach, I believe, who will be joining us later for their televising this event and making this event available on cable for the remaining of the week into before the election. Tonight is the annual Candidates Night sponsored by the East Bridgewater Republican Town Committee and the Democratic Town Committee. My name is Diane Phillips, and this is...
Miles Heger, and I'm the chair of the East Bridgewater Republican Town Committee.
And tonight, we will hear from the candidates running for the April 6th town election. The election will be held at the East Bridgewater Junior Senior High School on April 6th, and absentee ballots will be available at the town clerk's office. There are 10 positions on the ballot this year. Those candidates running for election have been invited to share a little bit about themselves, tell us why they're running for office, and what they hope to accomplish. The success of our town government relies on the dedication and commitment of all those who volunteered to run for office and to serve our community. And we are indeed grateful for those who are joining us tonight. And I know Miles is going to...
Excellent. Thank you, Diane. So this evening, how we will go about the night, each candidate has been invited to give a 3-minute presentation. We will begin the evening working our way down the ballot, beginning at the top of the ballot and continuing down to the last race. 3-minute presentations from each candidate. Frank Ray is our timekeeper, as he has been for a few years. We appreciate his help. So you will have 3 minutes, and I believe once there is a minute left, you give a wave, and then at 30 seconds, you give a wrap-up cue. So we ask candidates, there are many here tonight, to stick to 3 minutes. After everybody has given their 3-minute presentation, we will do as we did last year. First, we will entertain questions for uncontested offices, and then we will, Diane and I will slide over here and allow the contested races to entertain questions from the audience. We ask that candidates who are answering a question keep their response to a minute, and then we will continue to move forward. So with that, why don't we begin the evening? Diane, I believe you have the first race.
Right. For selectmen, we have one candidate, and is David J. Sheedy, and he was unable to attend, and I'm reading his comments. Thank you to Diane Phillips and the Democratic Town Committee, as well as Miles Heger and the Republican Town Committee. Due to a prior commitment, I am unable to be here tonight. I have been involved in the town of East Bridgewater since moving here in 1977. Besides coaching my children in various sports, I have served in elected positions, including planning board and selectmen, for over 27 years. I have also been appointed to a variety of different committees. I am currently on the Board of Governors for the East Bridgewater Y, and I have participated in Live Strong program as well as the Spinathon. I was honored to receive the Old Colony YMCA Community Impact Award for 2017. I am currently a member of EB Hope and am on the board of directors. This program is an outreach program for people with addiction that are seeking help. I have served on the committee for the 9/11 Memorial that is located between the town hall and the police station. I ask for your support on April 6th to continue my dedication and to use my energy to continue my work in our town. Sincerely, David Sheedy.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, Dave. I would like to just mention that we are going through the 3-minute presentations of uncontested races first, and then we will be working back up the ballot for contested races. I think I failed to mention that. So the next office for the April 6th election is Board of Assessor, Stephen Solari, seeking a 3-year term. I do not believe Mr. Solari is here this evening. Nope.
No.
All right.
Okay. So the next position is Housing Authority, which is a 5-year position. Sandra M. Luddy Ross is running for that position, and I do not see her here tonight. So
Okay. Trustee of the Public Library. This is for the full 3-year term. Candidate for re-election is Susan N. Murray. And Susan is here this evening.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank the Democratic and Republican town committees for hosting this candidates' night once again this year. I'm Susan Murray, and I'm running for a seat on the Board of Library Trustees. My husband Dick and I have been residents of East Bridgewater for 42 years. All 3 of our children and our 1 grandson are graduates of East Bridgewater High School, and our granddaughter is currently a freshman there. I'm a graduate of Stonehill College in a year somewhere after the invention of the printing press, before the invention of the internet. And I have served for 8 terms as a library trustee. Albert Einstein said, "The only thing you absolutely have to know is the location of the library." From what to expect when you are expecting, to the 5 people you'll meet in heaven, and every stage of life in between, the library is the place to go for the information you need. If you're looking for entertainment, come to the library. Books, magazines, videos, CDs, all can be found at the library. For the technologically savvy, e-books, e-comics, e-audio, e-music, e-videos, all those streaming things that I have no idea about are there as well. Programs for children, teens, and adults are ongoing at the library. Library programs encompass all ages, from story time to locked room to mysteries to the cookbook club. There's something for everybody going on at the library. Don't think of the library as a place where a librarian with a bun and sensible shoes is saying, shh. It's a vibrant and engaging part of our community. I have been honored to serve on the Board of Library Trustees, and I ask for your vote to continue to serve on this board as the library moves forward into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. The next candidate seeking a seat for 3 years on the Library Trustees is that of Catherine Leah Holbrook. And Catherine is here.
Good evening. First, I would like to say thank you to the Republican and Democratic town committees for sponsoring Candidates Night. My name is Catherine Lee Holbrook, although I go by Cat, and I'm running for re-election as a library trustee. My husband Justin, my daughter Evelyn, and I have lived in East Bridgewater since 2009. And my husband graduated from EB High in 1991, and my daughter is currently a freshman. I have been serving on the East Bridgewater Public Library Trustee Board as a trustee since the fall of 2017, and I would be honored to continue in that role for the next 3 years. I am a frequent user of the East Bridgewater Public Library, and my daughter volunteers on the Teen Advisory Board. I have a BA in History from Bridgewater State and a master's degree in Library and Information from Simmons College. I am an archivist at the Arthur and Elizabeth Schlesinger Library on the History of Women in America at Harvard, where I arrange and describe the personal papers and records of women, their families, and organizations. We have an amazing group of librarians here in East Bridgewater who ensure that our library functions at a top level, and I am proud to support them in their mission. To quote Carla Hayden, the Librarian of Congress, "Libraries are the cornerstone of democracy. They provide equal accessibility to all and harness the power of technology with unparalleled resources to cultivate and inspire lifelong learning." Thank you.
With the, we have another trustee of Public Library, Ann Merrick.
And this is for the 2-year vacancy.
I don't know that I'll be quite as entertaining as my library trustee colleagues, but bear with me. First, thank you for inviting me and holding this. My name is Ann Merrick. I am currently serving as a library trustee, filling in an interim position. I have been an East Bridgewater resident for 25-plus years, and I frequently use the library as well. Libraries, some of the services that I use, as we're saying, libraries have evolved. It's not just checking out books and magazines, but you have e-books, you have CDs, you have quiet places to study, well, kind of quiet, computers, fax machines, copy machines, and recently I found out we even have a free notary service there. And that's just part of what our library offers. They do, it's one of those situations where everyone's now told you have to do more with less. They do it, and they do it well. Now, why do I want to be a trustee or continue to be a trustee? Well, first off, the library is a service that I believe in. And I want to be an active member of my community. When I was working, I commuted a lot. I didn't have the time, but now I have the time. And what a rich community we live in. Why do I like the library? It crosses all demographics. It's not just the schools. It's not just for little kids. It's for everybody. There are people who go there daily to read the newspaper. There's adult programs, children's programs. They have all the summer reading books for our high school students. They have a book club, and that just scratches the surface. Another thing I'd like to do is I hope to support and our current programs and also identify and try to expand some of the new programs based on, the needs of the community. Some of the things that I didn't realize until I became a trustee is not only do we have new books and magazines all the time coming in, they have automatic renewals. They're doing away as much as possible with fines. Everyone has seen, when you do have a fine, the food for fines in February. The library is a collection point for foods for our food pantry. The library is also a collection point for the Giving Tree, one of the main points. Before I really get squeezed here, I also want to say I do want to promote the expansion of the library. It has kind of gone to sleep, but it's coming back. So that's going to be one of the things that we're looking forward to kind of explaining to the community and hopefully promoting and supporting. I'm done.
Thank you very much. The next uncontested race on the ballot is that of Board of Health. Seeking re-election, a candidate for re-election is William Hubert. And I do not see Bill here tonight, so.
And the last uncontested race is for Planning Board, and it's with Bernard Smith or Lindy L. Snow. And I believe neither of them are here tonight.
Either one.
No, okay.
Moving to one of the contested races, that of Constable, a 3-year term. The first candidate is a candidate for re-election, Robert P. DeFazio, and Bob is not here tonight, but he did send in a statement that I will read. I am sorry that I am unable to attend this candidates' night. I have been active elected constable for over 20 years and running for re-election. I am a Navy CB veteran and served 22 months in Vietnam. I have lived in town for 43 years with my wife Peggy and have 2 grown children, my daughter Nicole, who is active with the Sports Parents, and my son, disc jockey Rob Peters. I have served on the Recreation Commission, Kiwanis past president, and I am the current chairman of the Council on Aging. As constables, we serve at no cost to the town. We serve summonses, complaints, subpoenas, and notices. We are also authorized to perform evictions and provide all of these services to attorneys and citizens in our community and in the area. These are actions that police departments are not authorized to perform. Constables are not policemen, but have very unique powers under Mass General Law and state statutes. We have arrest powers to apprehend individuals with capious warrants and accompany them to court in default and contempt charges. I am licensed and bonded and have been certified by the Department of Revenue Child Support Enforcement Division to provide constable services. Elected constables, when ordered by the selectmen, post the town warrants for town meetings. While performing community service, you may have seen me directing traffic or working at a crosswalk during community events such as 5K runs, the Skyless Begone Walk, the annual Christmas Parade, and Christmas on the Common. It has been a pleasure to address you at Candidates Night, and I ask for your vote. If I can answer any of your concerns, feel free to contact me. Thank you to the Democrat and Republican town committees for holding this informative night. Thank you, Bob. And the next candidate for re-election is Joel C. Thomas. And I do not believe Mr. Thomas is here tonight. So that we will move to the third candidate for re-election, and that is Michael P. Travers. And I know Mike is here tonight.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to thank both chairs for hosting this opportunity for us to speak to the public. My name is Mike Travers, and I'm running for re-election as the town constable. I'd like to talk about some of my service in the community, both local and national, such as producing and hosting the TV show Around the Town with Mike Travers. It's on the cable station, and it's a public interest show locally here for people in East Bridgewater. Also, as a long-standing member of the East Bridgewater Kiwanis Club and serving on their board of directors. I also served as a member of the East Bridgewater Community Emergency Response Team, normally called the CERT team. I served several years in the American Red Cross to the town of East Bridgewater. I was the Red Cross Community Liaison person to the town, and that involved mostly helping the town plan for shelter operations in time of need. I've attended both the East Bridgewater Citizens Police Academy in the Norfolk County and Plymouth County Sheriff's Community Police Academy. I retired from the Army after 23 years with the Medical Corps. And the Army sent me to school to be an Army medic and then on to nursing school in Cambridge. And in those 23 years, they included in part duty in Panama, Honduras, Germany, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Fort Drum, New York, Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. Much of that time was spent in combat support hospitals. By the time of my retirement, I had been awarded the Army's Meritorious Service Medal, 5 Army Commendation Medals, 5 Army Achievement Medals, and also the Army's Community Service Medal. Being an elected constable allows me to work with the Department of Revenue, and I assist them in their mission to enforce child support laws. I hope this gives you a sense of my commitment to community service, because I want to continue as your town constable. I thank you in advance for your vote on April 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Travis. The next candidate seeking re-election is Robert J. Peterson. And I do see Mr. Peterson here tonight.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having us. Just want to first thank Mr. Travers and DeFazio for their service to the country. It's really honorable, and we're thankful for that. And anyways, I'm Robert Peterson. I'm running for re-election of constable, one of the 5 positions. I'm a lifelong East Bridgewater resident and former East Bridgewater basketball all-star. I'm married to my wife, Anya, and we have 3 incredible daughters. My oldest daughter, Nicole, just got straight A's on her report card, and it's definitely the best news we've gotten. She's the best accomplishment our family's gotten this year, and we're wicked proud of her. My middle daughter, Zoe, is 1 in a zillion, special needs. Her condition is like an incredible long shot, and she could probably beat Dick Eldridge in an election for mayor if we ever have a mayor election. And my youngest daughter, Kayla, is 5 and going on 15, so I have my hands full. We've always been thankful. We live in a safe and respectful community in East Bridgewater. And right now, me and my wife are the owners of 1-on-1 Strong Fitness in Whitman, where we work with every ability and disability, as well as we run a Wicked Smoothie Espresso Bar as well, also in Whitman. And we enjoy serving healthy food options to everybody and help our clients achieve fitness and wellness goals through health coaching and personal training. I enjoy helping everybody who desire help, whether it's help with their diet, their health, their life, their career, personal life. I always use discretion, and I'm very understanding and flexible. Although I'm very busy each and every day, I always have available time at some point of the day to get in touch with everybody and help them out. I'll even go above and beyond and bend over backwards for people. When I was elected in 2016, I was on cloud 9, and I was thrilled that East Bridgewater community came out and supported me at the polls. Being a constable is a very important position, and it takes a lot of learning as we are part of the judicial process. I'm very cautious to be very diligent and accurate in every assignment that I take on. I don't claim to have every answer. I'm not afraid to reach out to other knowledgeable people to find any answers that I might need. I'll assist any constable or law enforcement as needed with any potential dangerous serving. When it comes to electing a constable, you should have trust that the person you're electing has solid moral compass and will not overstep the reason that they are elected to serve the town of East Bridgewater. If you Google Massachusetts constable, you'll see that there have been issues with constables in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts abusing their powers, their elected authority, and some of them act as rogue police officers, and that they have no accountability. So the first thing you do is you really want to trust the people you're electing and put in office, because it's kind of an oversighted position. And my goal is becoming re-elected constable is simply to serve my community. I have no other reason. I'm looking forward to serving East Bridgewater with dignity and respect. I would like to help maintain the peace and tranquility that we love about our town of East Bridgewater. And I'm going to end with a quote that I used last time, but I really like it, from coach, teacher, former athlete Albie Stonkus. It's nice to be important, but more important to be nice. And I think we should anybody serving the community should have that kind of morality. Thank you. I hope to see everybody at the polls on April 6th.
Thank you very much. And of course, as candidates come up, we do ask you to keep it close to 3 minutes. Frank's doing his job as timekeeper here and whispering in my ear. So thank you. The next candidate seeking election to the office of constable is that of Thomas M. Kerrigan. And I do see Tom here tonight. Evening.
I have to get my glasses. Thank you, Miles and Diane, and the Republican and Democratic committees for hosting this event tonight. So my name is Tom Kerrigan, and I'm running for constable in the upcoming election. I'm a lifelong resident of East Bridgewater, and I have a great love for my small hometown. East Bridgewater is a wonderful place to raise a family. My mother, Lorraine LaBelle, was born and raised here. And after meeting my father, Donald Kerrigan, in California in the 50s, they married and brought their growing family back to her hometown in the 60s. Although there are 6 children in my family, I was the first child to be born here, and that makes East Bridgewater a very special place to me, and is why I chose to raise my own family here. I have always tried to give back when I could. I have served as a Little League coach, as Cub Master of Pac 28 for 3 years, has served as a Boy Scout leader in Troop 32 as well. I am a member of the Kiwanis Club of East Bridgewater, and I have served as president, board member, and secretary. I said it right. That's an inside joke. I've been a member of the board of directors of East Bridgewater Community Television, now EBCAM, for 15 years, holding the position of secretary for most of that time. In addition, I was a chairman of the Cable Advisory Committee, and I had a key role in negotiating a new contract between Comcast and EBC TV. I want to see East Bridgewater continue to be a place where people want to live and raise their family. I hope that by doing my small part, I'm contributing to its successful future. In closing, I want to say that I will be the person that the town can rely on to perform the duties to the best of my ability, and I will be there when I am needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Final candidate seeking a 3-year term as constable is that of Robert J. Van Dusen.
And you know the old adage, they save the best for last. Thank you both for hosting this tonight. Good evening, everybody. My name is Bob Van Dusen, and I'm a candidate for constable for the town of East Bridgewater. I'm running for constable because I truly enjoy this town, and I'm very adept to the service of process. I've been a resident of East Bridgewater for over 15 years with my wife, Carrie, and my son, Philip. As far as experience, I have 30 years of law enforcement and investigation experience combined. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my background. I am an Army 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment veteran, once assigned the duties of escorting the President of the United States, performing burial ceremonies in the firing party unit at Arlington National Cemetery, maintaining combat proficiency as an infantryman, and performing other high-level security functions in and around Washington, D.C. After the service, I worked as a contract security agent for INS Immigration at Dulles International Airport in Northern Virginia. Upon moving back to Massachusetts, I served as a sheriff's deputy, state investigator, Boston Police Special Officer, city constable, federal security protective officer under contract with the Federal Protective Service, and currently am a private investigator employed to work alleged felony crimes for court-appointed attorneys in the Plymouth County region. I have had extensive training in the Police and Corrections Academy, FBI schooling, federal security training, homeland defense and terrorism schooling, and a host of other job-related training blocks in schools. I'm well qualified for this position, but more important than that, I want to give back to my community in a way of helping people through some difficult processes, such as court issues, landlord-tenant disputes, and any other judicial-related matters by either serving the process for you or help you to understand the process. I also want to give back by taking a portion of my proceeds that I earn as constable and donate it annually to the town public safety departments. On Saturday, April 6th, please vote for experience. Vote Bob Van Dusen, and I'll be 6th on the ballot under constable, 6th. Polls are open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., at the junior, senior high school. Thank you. And again, thank you.
Thanks very much. The next contested office is that of trustee of public library to fill a one-year vacancy. We have two candidates. The first candidate is Brenda J. Conca. And I do see Brenda here this evening.
I want to thank the Democratic and Republican town committees for hosting this evening. Thank you. Thank you, folks, for coming out tonight. My name is Brenda Conca, and I am currently serving and running for re-election on the East Bridgewater Board of Trustees. I am a 20-year-plus resident of East Bridgewater and currently a stay-at-home mom of an amazing 14-year-old. Since I've had the 14-year-old, we've become regular patrons of the library. We've participated in most of their children's programs, young adult programs, and adult programs here in town. I have been a volunteer here in town for 10-plus years, working mostly with Girl Scouts, sometimes with the public school departments. In Girl Scouts, I've led a team of, a troop of Girl Scouts in which we've done many service projects here in town for the senior center, for the library, for Brockton Hospital, and many others. It would be an honor to serve on the Board of Trustees for another year. I hope really to help them out in all their endeavors, and look forward to getting every citizen in town to becoming patrons, regular patrons of the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate seeking to fill the one-year vacancy for the trustee of public library is Russell A. Hannigan. Russ?
First, I want to thank the Democratic Town Committee and the Republican Town Committee for this opportunity. And I want to thank everyone for being here at tonight's event. This is kind of weird for me because usually I'm the one behind the camera equipment, not in front of it. So if I'm a little nervous, please excuse me. And I did bring some Cliff Notes. I'm 56 years old. I was born in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, grew up in Carteret, New Jersey. Our one claim to fame for Carteret is we are in the opening credits of The Sopranos. I'm recently engaged to my beloved Sonia Paz, who's here tonight. Cheer me on. Graduate of Carteret High School and also Boston University Terrier, go Terriers. College of Basic Studies in School of Public Communications. They now call it the College of Communications. Spent 3 years in the United States Army as a military broadcast journalist. I served at Fort Bragg, Fort Knox, and Fort Ben Harrison. I also was with Armed Forces Radio and Television Service in Palmarejo Air Force Base, Honduras. And I was in Seoul, Korea in 1988 with Armed Forces TV during the 1988 Seoul Olympics. I've worked in both commercial and public access television at Channel 66 in Hudson. If you know Home Shopping Club, you know Channel 66. Sports Channel New England and Woburn, and in public access, I worked at KBLA TV 13, Lowell Telecommunications in Lowell, and Falmouth Community TV in Falmouth. For the last 15 years, I've been the executive director of East Bridgewater Community Access Media. Now you might be asking, okay, why does this media guy want to be a library trustee? I wish to advocate on behalf of the library. I think Brenda and all the other members of the trustees have done a wonderful job. So I'm not running against someone, I'm running for the library. One of my favorite quotes was from Winston Churchill. It was at the beginning of World War II. His cabinet had advised him, we need to conserve money. We need to cut funding to the arts and start making armaments. To which Churchill replied, then what are we fighting for? And I think that's the important thing to remember, that no matter what goes on, East Bridgewater Public Library is our cultural center. It is where all the wonderful things that go on in the community. It is the one service that everyone can use every day of the week. It's computers, it's books, it's CDs, it's DVDs, it's electronic technology. I go to the library on a regular basis to get books and everything else, and I think that we can do a lot to make our library better. My parents are retired, Herbert and Phyllis. They live in Florida, in a little town called Boca Raton. They have a branch library down the street from where they live. And the thing that always amazes me about their library is, first of all, the size of it, and second, the fact that everyone does use that branch because it's large enough to be used. People literally get married at the Spanish River Boulevard Branch Library in Boca Raton. It's that big a facility. I just want to do my part, and I hope you'll vote for me on April 6th. The polls are open 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. at East Bridgewater High School. And again, I thank you, and I thank both committees for this opportunity to speak to you folks.
Thank you.
The last position is school committee, and we have 4 candidates, and there will be 2 positions. You can vote for no more than 2. So the first candidate is Jonathan Babcock, who is our candidate for re-election.
Good evening. Thank you, Diane and Miles, for holding this again this year. My name is Jonathan Babcock. My wife and I moved here about 4 years ago. I was born in Pembroke, grew up in Norwell. I worked after college for 4 years at Cardinal Cushing School and Training Center, a school for special needs students. I then went to law school and am an attorney. I'm a graduate of UMass Amherst and Suffolk University Law School. While in law school, I clerked for Long & Long, which is a law firm that specializes in education law and municipal law. And I then became a member of the board of the Community Action Agency of Somerville, which is a nonprofit. I was also served as the president. We oversaw all of the Head Start early education programs for the cities of Cambridge and Somerville. I was an attorney for over a decade. For the last 2 years, I have worked as a teacher as well. I'm a history teacher. When we moved here, we thought, beautiful town, beautiful new school. Then we started sort of scratching the surface, and we realized that East Bridgewater, while we have a beautiful new school, we don't fund it enough. East Bridgewater spends the least of almost every municipality in Massachusetts on our children, on the per pupil expenditure. So I've tried to be a strong advocate to change that. That does mean some changes are going to have to be made in town. I think we've done a great job of making people aware of that fact and trying to change the culture here in town to value the education we give to our kids more than we have in the past. I do think it's important to give credit to the educators we have working here now. They've done an amazing job with the very little that we've given them. But it's not fair to them, and it's not fair to our kids. One of the accomplishments that I'm most proud about in my 3 years that I've been on the school committee, we managed to get full-day kindergarten. Having worked with the Head Start program for so long, early education, I know how important that is, that kids right off the bat get a good education. And for a long time, full-day kindergarten was something that people had to pay for, and some people simply couldn't afford it. And that's simply not fair to have kids behind from the get-go. So I plan on holding a meet and greet. Hopefully, EBCAM has offered their space sometime next week, and I hope that people will stop by and talk to me.
Thank you. The next candidate for school committee is Trista R. Higgins.
Thank you, Miles. Thank you, Diane. I'm not blushing. It's just really hot in here.
It is.
So thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you to all my friends who are here to support me. I have a great group of friends, so thank you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Trista Higgins. I grew up in Maine, and I moved to Massachusetts to go to college, and I've been here ever since. I've been in East Bridgewater specifically for almost 15 years. And I have to say, my greatest accomplishment today are my two boys. Some of you may know them. They're both at the East Bridgewater Junior Senior High School. Zach is in 8th grade, and Ben is in 10th. They are avid soccer players, so the soccer fields are where I spend 60-70% of my time, even in the winter. So I am a legit soccer mom. As far as my experience, I have a full-time job. I work for Sun Life Financial, and I work from home. So I'm able to, well, I work from 6 to 4 every day and then juggle my boys at night. So life is full. But in addition to all of that, I have been involved in the schools ever since they were little. I have a passion for both education as well as volunteering. I am affectionately known around town as a snack bar lady. I acquired that title from a little boy after he saw me at the baseball snack bar, the soccer snack bar, which I run at Belmont Street, and then the football snack bar. So he was pretty impressed that he kept seeing me all around town. So that is where you will find me a lot of the time, but that's just an aside. I do love to volunteer. It's a passion of mine, and I think it's important for my boys to see me volunteering and giving back. So they, now that they're teenagers, they're a little more begrudging about coming along and helping, and they have adamantly refused to hold any signs for me because they're too embarrassed. So you won't see them sign holding for me. But in the end, I have been thinking about running for school committee for a number of years. I've just been waiting for the right time that I would be able to give the time necessary to be involved and give back to the community in that regard. I give a lot of credit to our current school committee members as well as the administration. In the past 5 years, there's been a lot of change. There's been a lot of forward momentum. There's still a lot of change to be made, but I believe one of the most important keys to change and progress is how you approach that, and you need to be building respectful communication, respectful relationships, and you need to be able to work well together and build relationships even if you don't agree with the issue at hand. And I feel that in my job that I've been employed with my company for the past almost 20 years, which is somewhat of an anomaly for someone my age, I've learned to build a lot of relationships, and I think that will serve me well in this position. So thank you. Come and vote on April 6th, and if you want to sign, let me know.
Next, for school committee is Timothy McLaughlin.
Thank you once again for hosting this event. I think this is a fantastic way for those of us who aren't really known well around town to get our name out there and to talk about who we are. Hi, I'm Tim McLaughlin. I'm running for school committee here in East Bridgewater. And I grew up on the North Shore in Danvers in a family full of educators. I have aunts, uncles, grandparents that are all retired or current educators. My mother is a professor of education at Endicott College. And my grandmother was actually the reason I became an educator. She was a Navy nurse who was in Pearl Harbor when it was bombed and got out of the Navy and went to Boston College on the GI Bill, first class of women to ever graduate from BC, and she became a teacher, a guidance counselor, and then a school administrator. And when she retired from that, she ran for school committee in Danvers. And I never knew her as an educator, but I sure knew her as a school committee member, and she was fierce. She was ferocious, and God, did she advocate for those kids. And, you know, at her funeral, and her wake was held at the Danvers High School Auditorium as a tribute to her service to the kids. And at her funeral, they just talked about how she stood for advocating for kids. And it really stuck with me, what a powerful role that she held. So, you know, I kind of wanted to get into that same type of role in my life, to advocate for kids and to fight for kids. So I went to UMass Lowell, got a degree in history, and I joined the Army. I served in the 82nd Airborne and the 10th Mountain Division. And when I deployed to Afghanistan, I got to see kids in conditions that we can't even imagine here in our society. And I I thought, God, if these kids, just had the opportunity that our kids have in the United States. I was going to be a lawyer, but I decided during that deployment that I wanted to become a teacher instead. So I came home, got out of the Army, wanted to do something a little more peaceful. I met my beautiful wife, Catherine, and we got married. We have 3 kids now. We have a 10-year-old son, Aiden, an 8-year-old son, Owen, and because God wanted to mess with my patience, I have a 1-year-old daughter. And so in a few short years, I'm going to have children in all 3 of the schools in East Bridgewater. I've served as a teacher and administrator in the Boston, Middleborough, Falmouth, and now West Bridgewater Public Schools. I have been an assistant principal and a principal, and I have worked in both the high school, middle, and elementary school level. In those roles, you have to work closely with school committee. You have to help them understand what your vision is for a district, and school committee is just not limited to communication between the superintendent. They should interact with the principals, they should interact with the individual schools, and help them support their vision of what they want their schools to be. So I've seen from my standpoint how my interactions with school committee can help my school be better, help me be a better administrator, and help support our kids. I want to do that from the other end of the table. I want our kids to have the best opportunity they possibly can. It's no secret that East Bridgewater does not fund its schools well. We are 4th from the bottom in per pupil expenditure. We are not 4th from the bottom in terms of our ability to pay for our schools. And it's not going to be made up by simple 2 and 2.5% increases every year in our budget. We need to rethink the way we fund our schools and provide for our kids. There are things like social emotional learning. There are things like increase opportunities for AP courses at the high school. There are things that we can provide for our kids that we're not currently providing for them, and I want to fight for that. Is that my done, or is that the warning? Okay. Thought I had it under 3, not so much. I thank you so much, and I hope you vote on April 6th.
Thank you. And last is William M. Pellegrino, running for school committee.
First of all, thank you guys for hosting this. This is a cool event. My name is William Pellegrino Jr. I'm running for school committee, and I only get dressed up like this when I'm trying to impress people. I hope it's working. I've lived in East Bridgewater for 25 years. My parents moved here when I was 3. I've been here ever since. I haven't left yet, and I don't really plan on it. My wife and I just bought a house. Very exciting time. Anyway, my most unique qualification is my extensive familiarity with the East Bridgewater Public School District. Like I said, we moved here when I was 3. I attended East Bridgewater schools for all of my schooling career, K through 12. The district became my first employer in 2010. When I was a freshman in college, I was hired to be a math MCAS tutor at the high school. When I graduated in 2013, my first real job was as a substitute teacher at the school, which became a full-time paraprofessional position with my own classroom, with my own students. And I did that until 2017. This leads to my second most meaningful qualification, my expertise in the field of education. I am a career educator. I'm currently employed as a math teacher at Southeastern. I've studied math, history, and education at Stonehill College, and I am just over a month away from earning my master's in education from American International College. I'm a lifelong learner, so I'm not going to stop once I get my master's. I'm going to end up chasing another degree within a few years, either a Master of Arts in teaching or maybe just a pure mathematics program, maybe even a history program. As you can likely guess, I strongly believe that there is nothing more important than education. Not just for the individual being educated, but for the community in which that individual lives. A society is stronger when its people are better educated. A strong school district entices young families to move there, which in turn will help the community have a more stable tax base. My wife and I, like I said, we own a house. I, like many of you, probably find that our taxes are a bit high in East Bridgewater, but I question why we are not collectively disgusted by being ranked 318 out of 320 in terms of per pupil expenditure, as the others have mentioned. That's shameful. It's pitiable. It's embarrassing. And I hope you guys feel the same way. It wouldn't be a problem if our schools were adequate. But through no fault of the teachers, the other staff, the students, They're not. The schools are not adequate. The district in which I flourished, I believe, is gone. I think it's a pale shadow of what it once was. I want to fix it as part of the school committee. You've heard from the others, they seem to agree with that point of view. And I'm not running, somebody else said it earlier, I'm not running against these people, I'm running for East Bridgewater. I want to help East Bridgewater get better. I can tell that the others do as well. So it seems like you guys have a lot of good choices here. We need to develop a plan to fix this. I don't have all of the answers, but I do have ideas. I do have the educational know-how. To quote Bruce Springsteen, my favorite musician, nobody wins unless everybody wins. And when I look at our current situation, I don't believe anybody is winning right now. I love this town. I love teaching. I love students. This school committee can only benefit by adding a voice that checks off those 3 boxes. East Bridgewater, I hope you'll vote for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. The 3-minute presentations, we have gotten through each spot on the ballot. So with that, we will now begin the question and answer portion of our evening. And much like last year, it's a little bit structured. The first opportunity is for any uncontested race. So if anybody has a question for an uncontested race, you can come up to the podium right here in front of us and ask a question of any uncontested race. From there, we're going to go to school. No, we're going to go to constables first. No, I'm sorry. Library trustee vacancy, then constable, and then school committee. So, any uncontested race questions? Seeing none, we will move to trustee of public library, and we will shuffle over to the seat over here.
So we can invite
Russ
Brenda
and
and
Brenda.
Russ to come on up and find a seat. So are there any questions that anyone would like to come up and ask Brenda and Russ?
Mr. Babcock.
Hi, just a question to both of you, and actually to all of the people running contested and uncontested. Are you guys in favor of the plans for the new library?
Yes, in a word, yes. I was a little skeptical before I joined the board, but now that I've been working with the library, it's really, I've seen what a bargain it is and what a need there is for an expanded library.
I agree with Brenda. The library definitely does need to be improved and enhanced. Ultimately, though, it's not in the power of the trustees, it's in the power of the voters. They're the ones who are ultimately going to say whether or not it's going to go through. But myself, I am in favor of it. I think this library needs to be expanded. If you see the children's section in the basement, it could definitely be a lot better. I grew up in a small town in New Jersey where the library was in a house. And I don't even want to think about it, it just gives me shivers, but I think we could definitely improve on the library, and I hope that the voters will see that.
I have a 4-year-old. I'm intimately familiar with the.
Yeah, it's not just the children's room. It's the meeting spaces that are in the library. There's no, small gathering rooms for tutoring. I mean, we have teachers or tutors coming and helping students in the library, and there's no place for them to go to that's quiet and secluded for them. The computers are running on Windows 8, I think it is, which Microsoft is not even going to be supporting anymore. And the public computers in the library are just constantly in use. The community room, the community actually has to, if they want to use the community room, they actually have to battle the library programs for space in there because there just is not enough space in that library. It's really, it's overdue.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our library trustees?
Seeing none, thank you, guys. I will invite the candidates who are here for constable, Mr. Travers, Mr. Peterson, Mr. Kerrigan, and Mr. Van Dusen to make their way up. And there are 6 candidates running. 2 of them could not be with us this evening. So we do have 4 of the 6 candidates for 5 positions on the April 6th ballot. Do we have any questions for the constable candidates? Oh, Mr. Babcock?
Had just during this race been finding out more about what you guys do. And I had never known that you guys have, in limited circumstances, the ability to make arrests. Have any of you ever had to make arrests?
I have.
Well, we're going to go down the line. We'll start this question, and if there is more questions, we'll work our way up the ballot for constable candidates. But we'll start with Mr. Travers, and then go to Mr. Peterson, Mr. Kerrigan, and Mr. Van Dusen.
I have not arrested anybody, but I have had in hand quite a few arrest warrants. And I worked with a couple other constables in that service. And most times we could contact them in the home, give them a court date, and tell them they need to be there, and they either agree or then we would have to take them. But fortunately, I was not in a situation where people didn't show up. They always showed up for the ones that we contacted.
Mr. Peterson?
I've never personally made an arrest on anybody. I've assisted arrested as a loss prevention officer while working in Mattapan with the City of Boston Police Department. So I've been involved in it, but haven't done it myself. Thank you.
Kerrigan?
I have not. I haven't been a constable yet, so hopefully I will be, but I have not made any arrests.
Van Dusen?
I have. I cleared about 294 warrants between the years of 2002 to 2007. Somewhere around 294 child support warrants and approximately 200 criminal warrants. And I effected arrests sometimes myself, but I always communicated with the police department. I've trained officers in effecting arrests, search and seizure, so I'm well adept to that. Of course, civil default warrants are a totally different animal. Those you can talk people into court. You really want them to surrender because it's only a civil matter. They're only facing a contempt charge for not appearing in court for a civil matter. So you do, like Mr. Travers said, you do want to try to talk to people, try to lure them into court, have them surrender themselves, and then you turn the warrant over to the court. But outside of that, I was very active. And I was a sheriff before that, and I made hundreds of arrests. Fugitive arrests, escapees, and people wanted on default warrants and felony crimes.
Thank you.
If I may, just a quick follow-up. Sounds like between the 4 of you, you guys have quite a bit of military and law enforcement experience. Just as far as the constable position goes, is there any training that's required if you do get elected to be constable?
We'll start with Mr. Van Dusen and work our way back.
This town doesn't require it. Some towns do require a police academy, part-time intermittent academy. Many of the surrounding towns do. This town does not. I imagine as an elected constable, you can probably sponsor yourself to go, but you'd have to pay. I am academy trained. Got a lot of schooling in that department.
Thank you. Mr. Kerrigan?
As far as I know, there's no, like Mr. Van Dusen said, there is no law or requirement in the town of East Bridgewater. There are private schools as well that do offer constable-based training. But as far as the actual training, no.
Peterson?
When I was first elected constable, I was hoping doors would open a little easier to learn the process of learning to be a constable. And I find it kind of frustrating, actually, that the schooling isn't as available as it should be. I've gone to a lot of constable seminars while I was learning and asking questions, and most of the seminars don't really give you the training that I've found so far. And I'd like to see them make it a mandatory training, just so it's more readily available.
Thank you. Mr. Travers.
Well, as it's already been stated, the town doesn't require us to get training. But the most important thing you can do to survive, whether it's military or as a constable or a public servant, is to train. Training is what prepares you for the future. Some experience, excuse me, I did draw on is when I was at Fort Drum, I would train with the 94th MPs because they always had to have a medic with them when they went to the different firing ranges and some of their exercises. So I was lucky enough, I didn't have to just sit there as the medic. I actually got training with them, off the record, of course.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Other questions for constable candidates? Gentleman in the back. Come on up and state your name and.
Can I ask from here?
No.
No?
Get in the weapon. Come on, Ed.
Just a quick question now, you know.
Just state your name and an address, please.
Edward Sweeney, 137 Plymouth Street.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just a question, why do you guys seek the position?
We'll start here with Mr. Peterson, work down, and then Mr. Travers will finish.
Well, I like to be out there in the community to help people, and when people are in a situation, they like serving papers and stuff. There's a lot of questions, and I like to help them find answers. I mean, I don't have all the answers myself, but I like to help find them with them. And I just want to serve the community. I have no ambition to make it a career move. I'm just looking to help out.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Pretty much exactly the same. I've always been a strong supporter of the town of East Bridgewater. I've always helped out wherever I could, again, being whatever I've done in different boards, et cetera. And I feel it's time for me to start and give back again to the community.
Mr. Van Dusen?
I'm very adept at serving process. I've done literally thousands of services, and if anybody has any questions in the town, they can call me night or day, and I can answer probably almost any civil question you have or criminal. I've been a part of it all my life, and I do want to give back to the community. I propose some of the money I earn at the end of the year, I'll turn over a portion of that to one of the town public safety departments, and that's my goal.
Mr. Travers?
I actually had my initial interest through Bob DeFazio, one of the other constables, because he and I spent a lot of time together through Kiwanis and a few other things. But I think more importantly, after I got elected and I started working with Department of Revenue, serving people for child support, being in the arrears, I found that life is so different out there, and I could be part of the help. Maybe not the fix, but the help. I meet a lot of people that are behind in child support, excuse me, but they're not all people that ran away from obligations. If you don't have a job, and in this economy, there's a lot of people that don't have jobs, you know, a gentle hand could be good for them, and it's good for everybody else. And I hope that's one point everyone would take home from what I'm saying, that not everybody that is served is a bad person or is hiding. But if you don't earn $1 for the week, you can't spend it or give it to your children. So I find that I can really be the kind of person that makes it easier for people when they are being served.
Thank you, Mr. Travers.
Just a quick follow-up?
Okay.
No, just kidding. Thank you.
I did see another person raise
Don't
their
forget,
hand.
we know where you live.
Go ahead, Dutch.
And work.
Hi, Kathy Wolf, 272 Laurel Street. It's a couple questions, but I think you can incorporate it into your answers. One, are you required to carry a weapon? Two, how many hours a week do you anticipate or have you spent providing this service? And three, I thought you guys were on a volunteer basis, so how do you make any money at it?
Within a minute, if you can. We'll start with Mr. Kerrigan, work down to Mr. Van Dusen, and then Mr. Travers and Mr. Peterson. Go ahead, Mr. Kerrigan.
The first question was, are we required to
Well,
have
do
a
you
weapon?
carry weapons?
We can, if you are legally licensed in the state of Massachusetts, town of East Bridgewater, as having a license to carry. I do. Second question again?
How
sorry?
much time would you spend?
Since there are 5 constable positions, I do have a full-time job, so pretty much Monday through Friday. I could possibly do late evening appointments or late afternoon if anything should happen. And then on Saturdays, I know we can't serve papers on Sunday. And we don't get paid by the town of East Bridgewater for our services, but we do get paid per issuance. So if we were to issue a document from a court or a lawyer or whatever for whatever the situation is, they pay you for that.
As far as carrying a firearm, it's been the tool of my trade most of my adult career. I'm highly trained in that area. That's all it is, a tool of the trade, and it's a last resort. But in the case of a constable, you're under strict laws that you are a law enforcement officer, you are a public official, a municipal officer. If something occurs in your presence, you would probably have to act. But as far as the money goes, or how much time we would spend, I'd probably devote quite a bit of time during the week, serving process, answering questions, that sort of thing. I have a real flexible job right now. I'm an investigator right now currently, and I make up my own hours. So I would devote quite a bit of time, depending on, you know, how much service I'm getting in. But again, I'm pretty adept to the service of process, so I can serve just about anything somebody brings to me. As far as making the money, if you go out there and hustle, if you do a lot of services, you can make a lot more. If you do services that require a lot more time, you're gonna make a little bit more. So you can make a pretty good part-time living out of this position if you want to, but the town doesn't compensate you.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Travers.
Well, if you would ask my wife, she'd say, he's not in it for the money, I can tell. She takes what I get anyways. No, there are a lot of times where you're not earning much money even though you're doing the work. And an example is I could get a service from Department of Revenue process to do, and I'll be down in Wareham, and the person hasn't lived there for 3 years, and that pays me $10.
Oh, dear.
Or South Plymouth. So I'm definitely not in it for the money. I find it very interesting. Again, I feel that I can be part of the system that makes it easier on people, yet gets the job done.
Do you carry a firearm?
I definitely carry a firearm, not just due to my military background, but there was a time where I go up to the 3rd floor of a house in Brockton to serve somebody. I don't do that anymore. Now I tape it on the door and hope I can get off the street. But that's part of a service you can do. But you definitely need something because there are so many weapons around. You just don't know what you walk into. But I also carry mace and so forth, because if I could solve a problem without using a gun, then I certainly rather use a lesser degree of force.
Thank you, Mr. Travers. And finally, Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, that's definitely not a requirement, but it's kind of crazy to go visit somebody who doesn't want to see you, or not have that tool, you know. And as far as the amount of time I dedicate, it's as much as needed. If I got 20 calls one week from people, I'd be answering 20 calls, but with 5 constables to the town, it's not that busy. I actually noticed on the town website, my name isn't even on the list, so I haven't even gotten any calls lately, but, so I'm wondering if I'm still a constable. But, yeah, if I get crazy busy, I'd be working more, you know, but right now I just do when I get called. A constable could go around and build a business through working with lawyers and stuff, but I mean, I've worked with some lawyers, but I haven't really built up a business around it, and I don't plan on it. I'm just doing it for serving the community.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions for the constable candidates? If not, I think we're going to thank them for coming, and we will invite the candidates for school committee up.
Thank you.
Are there any questions that you would like to start with a question for the school committee?
Questions for candidates for the school committee? Oh,
If you want. I'll defer to others. Teresa Maltz, 358 West Pond Street, member of the East Bridgewater School Committee. We just went through the NEASC process, which is the accreditation for our junior senior high school. What would you determine was the biggest takeaway from that, and what was the most actionable item you saw in that report?
So let's start down here with Mr. Babcock.
I'm not sure if people are aware, we're basically on probation with NEASC. We may lose our accreditation. A number of things problems that they had with the schools. The number one was that we're not funded enough. So, you know, it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse. For 3 years, I've been screaming about this PPE, per pupil expenditure, but this is why. You know, the school stands to lose their accreditation if we don't fix this problem. So that is by and far the most important thing to come out of the NEASC report.
Well, my wife is actually a teacher at the high school, so to me, the first thing that jumped out is that the NEASC report indicated the quality of the teaching at the schools is first rate. So that made me happy, that made my wife happy. I know that our students are receiving a good education in their classrooms. However, the thing that jumped out as a negative is inadequacy of services. We don't provide enough. We don't provide what we need to provide to our students. There are services that our students are legally required to have that they're not getting. That's a huge, huge problem.
Yes. And to that point, I agree. Funding is a big consideration. However, I would also say, and I know, Teresa, you asked about the biggest point that jumped out. One of the things I want to point out is sometimes allocation of resources is internal, based on structure and available resources and shifting of resources. And what I would like to say is the past 5 years, and I mentioned this early on, the current administration, from the superintendent to the assistant superintendent, who's doing a very comprehensive curriculum review, a 5-year plan, down to Principal Duffy, they are all working to make great progress to institute some of these changes within the schools, within the district, and they are also working to advocate for additional funding. But into that funding also comes other allocations of funds, which Teresa, I know you're familiar with, and John, I know you're familiar with because you're on the school committee. So a lot of the funding that's allocated to the school system isn't necessarily from the town. It's from federal funding, which, as we all know, is being considered by the current administration, the governor, and there are hopefully positive changes that will impact that funding and allocate some additional funds to the school. That being said, I think we need to continue to work with the other town departments to continue to fund the schools on a supportive level.
Guess what my answer is? Funding. The NEASC report, I mean, the NEASC report should be a wake-up call to the town. You know, it's, to lose our accreditation is something that we don't want to go through in this town. First of all, we want our kids, when they're graduating, to have their grades and their work and their academics taken seriously by colleges that are considering them. That goes away if NEASC pulls the accreditation. We want our property values to maintain steadily where they are and people to want to move to East Bridgewater. That goes away if we lose our accreditation. NEASC putting us on probation, as Mr. Babcock said, is not a joke. It is not something we should just look at lightly. We should have serious conversations about what we're going to fund differently. You're absolutely right in that the governor's proposal for increased funding is something that we need to take under consideration. There's also a bill that's going to be filed in the legislature this summer to rethink the Chapter 70 funding formula. And, you know, a funding formula that was created in 1993 isn't really adequate for our schools anymore. And we're expected to pay the costs every year when when costs that go up that we can't account for or plan for, and the state doesn't reimburse us for as they'd promised to do when Chapter 70 was first created, that's kind of why we're in the situation that we're in. So until Chapter 70 gets reallocated, gets rewritten, until the governor's budget gets approved, we've got to figure out within our town how we're going to take care of our kids.
Okay, Tim, you just stole my heart explaining unfunded mandates.
Yep.
John, you know those words well for me. Can I just ask one other question, another near and dear to my heart, which is social, emotional, and mental health support in our schools? I am a huge proponent for adjustment counselors, which we do not have currently in our district. Women Hanson has 2.5. I believe West Bridgewater do they have them at the high school?
They do not.
They do not yet.
No.
What is your opinion on that? Not only the addition of adjustment counselors, but where we are currently versus where we need to be with social, emotional, and mental health support in our district.
So can we start with
First of all, at Southeastern, we do have adjustment counselors, and the best thing I can say about them is that I don't know they're there most of the time, because the students who they service, they participate in class. They're there. They're present. They do their job, and the proof is that I don't notice. Here in East Bridgewater, with their absence, we do notice. We have 20% of our students at the high school are suffering from chronic absenteeism. 1 in 5 students have missed more than 18 days of school. Adjustment counselors would help a situation like that. They are definitely needed.
And sadly, I think the school community for our kids, this generation and generations to come, is vastly different from the school community even my generation grew up in. And I do feel that there is a very significant need to have adjustment counselors in the school for a whole host of reasons. So I do support that. These kids are impacted by so many more things than most of us were in our school years growing up, and unfortunately there's not always a support structure at home for a lot of these kids. So I do feel it's very important, and it is a necessity.
Boy, if you ask anyone who's been in education for more than 10 years, they'll tell you the prototype of kids coming through public schools today has changed. It is fundamentally changed across the board. And, there's a lot of concern in the field about, where we're going to be in 5 or 10 years for the kids that are showing up in kindergarten and first grade now and what their needs are going to be down the road. So I've worked in inner city schools and in Falmouth and Middleborough. Falmouth has, budget issues. They don't have budget issues, frankly, and we couldn't get enough school adjustment counselors in the building. I don't think there's a more important role in a school. If you studied psychology, you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and that you have to take care of kids' deficit needs before you can worry about educating them. And to sit and to look at a child and say, whatever else is going on in your life, whether it's it's opiate, it's drug issues, there's alcoholism, there's domestic issues, you're hungry, you didn't sleep last night, but we need to work on math right now. It's unfair to our kids to expect them to be able to learn and perform without taking care of what they need before they're ready to learn. I can't think of better money that East Bridgewater schools could spend than a couple of school adjustment counselors. It'll keep kids in school. They'll pay for themselves in out-of-district placements that won't happen because kids are engaged in school and successful. You spend $100,000 in school adjustment counselors, you'll save at least that in special education costs over the next year or two. So I can't advocate enough for that need.
Thank you very much.
If you want to be shocked, take a look at our budget and see what we spend on special needs. It's astronomical. As Tim mentioned, adjustment counselors can be part of fixing that. The very short answer is we don't have enough. We need more. Right now, we don't have money for them. I hate to beat a dead horse. It keeps coming back to it. The schools are underfunded. We need fierce advocates, not friendly, happy, sunshiny advocates. We need people who are going to fight for the kids. And if that's uncomfortable for some people in town, that's the way it is. Our schools are underfunded.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for our school committee candidates?
I could keep going if you want. I have a list.
Sure.
Again, Tom Kerrigan, 45 Deer Run Drive, East Bridgewater. We understand the funding issue. Everybody understands it. Everybody's heard about it. Everybody that's on social media knows the issues that this town has gone through, is going through. I know you don't have all night to explain it, so I won't ask you to, but just two things that you can think of as being a member of the school committee, not including communication with the other town departments, but where does the money come from? The old adage is you can't get blood from a stone. That's basically what you're dealing with. So, your thoughts, quickly if you can.
That's a great question, Tom, and I will do my best to answer it. I would propose, obviously, and I do know for a fact that the school committee as well as other town municipal departments do their best to seek out grant funding for whatever opportunities, projects, what have you, that they can obtain. So, you know, there's always more grant money, but with grant money comes the grant proposals, so on and so forth. And I don't think it's an easy answer. I don't think it's just, okay, well, I mean, for those of you who are at the meeting, you saw the presentation, you can go to the school website, you can see the transparency, you can see where the money's spent. I don't think there's an easy answer because we're a small town with no commercial basis and everyone's vying for money. You cut funding from one area and give it to another, those services are going to suffer. There are other towns facing the same issues that we are. So long story short, or long answer to this question, I don't have a definitive answer. I know that if I'm elected to the school committee, there's training that I will need to go through. I'll be able to learn more about the budget process. I've been talking to other people in town to understand their perspectives because before you can solve a problem, you need to understand all of the different parties involved. And I will reiterate that I am very excited for this opportunity. I know I have a sunny, happy disposition. However, I do believe that the ability to communicate and interact with people is very important.
Thank you. I think it's incumbent upon the school committee to pressure the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom to start rethinking the way we approach budgeting for the school department. Assigning town-wide percentages to each department and saying you all need to come in under this number is inherently unfair to the school department because school departments have a different mechanism for creating their budget than other departments do. There are so many variables and unknowns and cost hikes that other departments don't have to negotiate in the process of funding their budget. West Bridgewater right now, where I currently work, we were given a mandate by the town to come in at level service. So we're going to do exactly next year what we did this year. That came in at 5.6%, where the rest of the departments in the town were coming in at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. And that's not because we're being extravagant, it's because the cost of an out-of-district placement, which the district has to pay for, is $300,000 in some cases, or $175,000, plus, transportation plus other costs. And there are things that come in, there's obviously all departments have, raises for staff and other things, but there are more variables in education than there are in any other department. And we're going to come in with that budget, and we're not going to know on September 1st if that's going to be adequate, because 3 new families could move into town with needs that we didn't project. So I think rather than coming in and saying 2.5%, it's going to be what does the district need to be successful next year, and then how can we figure out to pay for that?
Thank you.
There's really two answers. You ask, where's the money going to come from? The first one, which I don't want, is an override, a tax increase. My wife and I pay a ton. You all pay a ton. East Bridgewater has one of the highest tax rates in Massachusetts. Second answer, which in some ways is just as hard, the money has to come from the taxes we pay. Instead of a rock, trying to get blood from a rock, I like the analogy of a pie. The tax money we pay is a pie, and a bigger slice of that pie has to go to the schools. The only other option is an override. I don't want that. I'm guessing no one in this room wants that. To have one of the highest tax rates and have the lowest per pupil expenditure, that's just unconscionable. That's your answer right there. There needs to be a reallocation of the taxes that we've all been paying. People say, where's it going to come from? Well, where has the money that the school should have been getting gone? That should be the starting point. We have an organization in town, the Finance Committee, that's their job to decide where we can pull money for the schools. The school committee's job is to present to the town what the schools need. It's not to decide where the money should come from elsewhere in the town. We have people who are set up to do that. So I know that's not an easy answer to swallow, but unless you want a tax override, that's really the only answer that, works.
Tim and Jonathan said much of what I would have liked to say. I'll start with this. I'll tell you where the money's not going to come from. It's not going to come from the state. I know we want them to reevaluate their formulas, and it sounds like they're going to do that, and that's great. But East Bridgewater already receives an above-average amount of aid from the state, slightly above average. It's not much, but still, we're technically getting our fair share from the state. When they rework the formulas, if they rework the formulas, we'll be happier. But in addition to that, I would say that we need to, like Jonathan mentioned, we need to look at where our money's being spent now. The school department is very, very, very transparent. You know where their money's going. You know what their financials look like. Is every part of this town government just as transparent as the school department? If not, they should be. They really need to be. I don't have a financial background. I'm a teacher, career educator. I can't tell you what things to do here, what things to do there, how to make it make sense with money. There are other people on the school committee who can do that. I can provide a look at the actual use of money on education. I can talk about what benefits will be received from spending money on this thing versus that thing. But where it's coming from, we have a finance committee for that.
Thank you.
Can I ask one further question? If it's okay? So it was mentioned earlier about NEASC accreditation and that we are in jeopardy of losing such. I think I recall 5, maybe 6 years ago, we also were in jeopardy of losing that because of our school. Our current school was deplorable. So we built a new school. And now we have NEASC accreditation for a couple of years. Everything's good. And now we're being told that we have accreditation and we could lose it because of underfunding. Real quickly, are we going to be in that same position again? Let's say we magically resolve this issue. 5, 6 years down the line, it always seems that NEASC accreditation is going to come up again, this being the second plus time. So just real quickly, if you would, if we can magically resolve the funding issue, which we know is not going to be easy, but we'll try. Everybody's going to try the best we can. How do we stay above board with NEASC?
So it should be kind of interesting that we're asking ourselves, why are we continuously tangling with NEASC? Because other towns aren't. And that kind of speaks to the problem. And that we certainly did need a new high school. Middleborough's going through it right now. They're building a new high school because they were going to lose their accreditation. NEASC's role is to go into districts and make sure that they are fulfilling it's a minimum standard, not a maximum standard, a minimum standard of appropriate education for kids. And that encompasses so many different checkpoints and different areas of investigation. We can't even talk about it here tonight. But the fact that you're asking that question kind of illustrates, and I agree, I hate to keep bringing up funding because there are so many other things we should be talking about here. But the fact that that's still coming up kind of illustrates that, yeah, maybe we do have an issue with how we take care of schools here. So I can't say that we're not going to have an issue, but maybe that should give us pause to think about what we're doing here.
I think it's definitely worthwhile to evaluate where the money is being spent currently. I wouldn't question that. I think that's our role as a school committee. As a member of the school committee, I would encourage that. Every year we should challenge, okay, this budget that's being presented, how do we feel about this? Can we analyze every piece of it? Because I think that's part of the job. I don't know that I have much else to say on the topic of why is this happening every time NEASC comes. Like you said, it's a minimum level, and we keep hitting it on one mark, then falling, because we're addressing that one thing that they called out last time, and now we can't afford to fix all of the other things that are sinking as the years pass. Next time they come, it's going to happen again. We are not currently looking like we're changing our trajectory. We need to. It's going to happen again.
So the NEASC cycle is a 5-year cycle, and to your point, yes, why were we there, at that point, why were we there again? I know this last cycle, which happened last year, it's just a brief history. It's a group of educators from around the state that come. They interview students, they interview teachers, they interview parents. They ask, different questions of whatever group they're interviewing. I happen to be one on the parent advisory board for the NEASC visiting group. And they solicited questions about guidance, about extracurricular, about teachers, about homework. It was a vast array of questions. So I do want to point out that although our funding is one of the big concerns with NEASC, there was a lot of input and a lot of things that fed into the overall NEASC report, albeit some not as great as the funding. And I do know from being on the parent council at the East Bridgewater Junior High School, Mr. Duffy presented the NEASC report to us, which is available to everyone in the community, and he is actively working on all of these points and these things that need to be addressed for NEASC. So hopefully we won't be there in 5 years. Certainly funding is a big concern, but there are other things that feed into the whole NEASC report and the rating and the potential risk of accreditation or, losing accreditation.
The last time this happened was in some ways sort of a 100-year storm. It was an old building that was falling apart. But that's just going to happen sometimes. That was actually before we moved here. I talked to a lot of people about that. I don't know, was it not maintained correctly? Was it just, at the point where it didn't make sense anymore? My understanding of that was that it actually would have cost more money to bring that old building up to code than it was to buy the new building. Right. So I'm not sure if we should, say this is a continuing thing with NEASC accreditation. That one was because of a building that was falling apart. To me, this is a much more serious one. When I suggest or recommend people look at the NEASC report. It's scary. It really should be a wake-up call. To lose your accreditation, your kid's high school degree isn't really worth the paper it's printed on if it's not from an accredited high school. So how do we make sure we're not here again? We change the atmosphere in town. We've been trying to do that. I've been trying to do that. People are probably sick of me trying to do that. But we need to change the atmosphere. We are working, you're basically on probation. NEASC comes back, they visit, periodically to make sure. You have to put a game plan together to address the problems that they've brought up. That's already in place and being implemented. We're going to have a tough time, though. The overarching issue they had was funding. They specifically said the schools are underfunded from the tax base. So, to me, it's a pretty simple fix to that problem. You start funding your schools.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions? Are there any other questions that the school committee might be able to answer for you?
If not, I think it'd be a good opportunity to close out the recorded portion of the evening and invite everybody out into the lobby here as the Republican Town Committee and Democratic Town Committee have brought some decaf coffee and some snacks. I think we've been here and awake long enough today, so I would like to thank my counterpart, Diane Phillips, Chair of the Democratic Town Committee. Now, I know you guys meet. Why don't you tell the audience about?
We meet on the third Wednesday of the month. We are actively looking for anyone interested in local, state, and national politics that have like a little energy, that want to get out and get involved. We meet and we're looking for members to join us.
And the Republican Town Committee meets the fourth Tuesday of the month at Adria's, which is the old Cameron's on the Green. Anybody's welcome. We have a Facebook page too if anybody would like to reach out and learn more. Of course, town election is April 6th. The polls are 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We do have a couple of contested races, as folks have learned here tonight. This is going to be broadcast back on East Bridgewater Cam. I'd like to thank Russ and Zach and everybody who's made this possible. Diane, always a pleasure to work with you.
Same here.
So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to speaking more out in the lobby.
We're